end of the service? Sure, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I am so glad to be here, and as Pastor Bob said, we've been friends, and I planted a church in Mount Clemens, and I now live in Grand Rapids, which they have over 2 feet of snow right now, so that west side is no joke over there. The lake effect, you can go 15, 20 minutes into Holland, and they have close to 4 feet. And so you just never know. And my snowblower has really been worked out this year. So I am learning some new muscles I have not had. But I'm so glad to be here. I've been, as Pastor Bob said, I was a pastor my whole life. And I still go around and preach quite a bit. But I do it for now an organization called CMA, or Christian Mission Aid. About 5 years ago, they came to me and asked me if I would be interested in being their U.S. director, and I said no. And they asked me 4 times, and they finally said, "We want you to come to Africa and just see," which was a dirty trick, because they knew once I got there, I would be all in, and I was. I have been on over 27 missions trips previously in my life, simply because I went to a Christian school that required us to go, but my dad would also take me on one a year. And so I've been all over the world, into Siberia, Africa, anywhere you can think, and it's really changed my life. The first time I ever went, it was into Jamaica, into Kingston, and Kingston is... when you think Jamaica, you're like, oh, that was a rough one. Until you go to Kingston and you see the poverty. It was heartbreaking, and it changed my life. It changed everything for me. My call into ministry actually happened in a place in Siberia called Mias. And I had to travel 6,200 miles to have that moment with God where he said, "I want you full time. I want you to do this full time." And so missions has played a huge part in my life. 38 years ago, there was a couple from California that just got married, Larry and Debbie Kitchell, and they said, before we start our professional careers, as they were nurses, let's go and do something for 1 year. We can do anything for a year. So they moved to Africa for 1 year to just serve people and work in the medical arena of missions. They never came home. Fell in love with the people, fell in love with the land, and never made it home. So for 38 years, Christian Mission Aid has been serving primarily in Kenya. We also serve in Uganda and South Sudan. South Sudan is keep them in prayer, because they are really, really going through it. A lot of people are being murdered. It is very rough time in South Sudan. In fact, when I was in Juba in South Sudan, I didn't even get out of the airport, just simply because it was not safe, and had meetings there in the airport. But what CMA does is we train pastors. So many people come to hear the gospel and they get excited. They want to become pastors, but they still live under their same tribal rules. Some of the tribal rules are just terrible. But in their mind, we've always done it, so why not continue to do it? One of the things they really struggle with there is fathers will sell off their daughters starting at age 10 to a 70-year-old man for 50 head of cattle. And she joins 6 other wives, and she now becomes a slave of the other wives. And she goes around and picks up sticks for the fire, water, which many times, because of where they live, and I'll get into that in a minute, can take up an hour to hour and a half walk to grab this water. And then cruelly, in cruel terms, she becomes a baby maker for this man. And starting off at the age of 10 is when they are sold. I won't get into it, but they do what they call a FGM, or female genital mutilation, on these girls, and it's barbaric. And so for these pastors, that's just what we've always done. Why we circumcise boys, and we've always done it, so we've done this. We always do it, and they just have some rules. They have some, and so what we do is we go in and we get these pastors, and we spend 4 years with them, and we go to them. Because when I talk about CMA, although we're based in Nairobi, which is a mile up like Denver, so it's not such bad weather there, most of our work is done within the bush of Kenya, Pokot, Turkana, Maasai. Maasai are the people that can jump really, really high, but you have to be invited down. You can't just go. But we have such a relationship with them that the chiefs are so excited every time we come. And so we take these pastors and we go to them and we do a 4-year training with them. And we show them New Testament, Old Testament. We talk to them about how to lead well, how to serve well, how to give of yourself. And after 4 years, they get this big graduation, and I'm telling you, they are so excited. And then we give them things like Bibles, which are like, okay. But to have a tribal Bible is one of the most amazing things, because there are 63 different tribal languages in Kenya. So for a tribe to get a Bible is a very big deal, because they are expensive to have those done specifically in the tribal language. Audio Bibles, where people that can't, or tribes that can't read, they can press play and they can hear the Bible in their own language. Not in Swahili, which is the national language, but in their tribal language. And we give these pastors these motorcycles so that they can go around. Now, families over there that have 25 to 30, the husband will have, again, 4, 5, 6 wives, with all these children. You have 30 people. And so they don't live next to each other in the villages. They live a mile and a half away from anybody else, so that they have room for what they need to do with their goats and their cattle and everything else. So no one lives next to each other. So when someone is hurt, when someone is bitten by a snake, when someone has a really bad infection, they call the pastor, because the pastor is the only one that has a motorcycle that can take them to where they need to go, which is usually at least 2.5 hours away. Again, in the bush, they don't have hospitals, they don't have police, they don't do the normal things that you would expect. So the pastor becomes an ambulance driver. The pastor becomes all things. But a pastor can now, instead of seeing 1 or 2 people in a day, he can see up to 10 people in a day. And through donations and everything else, we're able to provide these pastors with something that is life-giving. What we do through CMA, everything that we give to the communities is done through the pastors. What we believe is we don't want a bunch of blue shirts that say CMA on it, a bunch of people handing it out. We support the pastors, then the pastors give everything out, because they know the need. We don't know these people. They have been spending time developing relationships, understanding needs, so we supply them, and we kind of take a step back, but we help them obviously pass things out or do whatever they need us to. We do things where literacy for women who want to read the Bible, who want to write their name. To see these groups after 2 years and women can read the Bible, I'm telling you, when I show up, they are so proud to be able to stand, to write their name on a chalkboard, to be able to read the Bible. This is one of their proudest moments. They can take this home and they can be a starting generation that can read to their children And so kids are starting to hear the gospel at a young age. CMA, we also do clean water. Again, when you go and get the water, I should have really had pictures, but here are the pastors with their motorcycles. We really should have had pictures of or brought an actual water filter. But it's basically a 2-bucket system. A bucket sits on top of another bucket, and at the top bucket there's a filter. So when you pour the water in, and when I say water, the water looks like chocolate milk with green algae on top. And women are gathering with the goats that are in there, not just drinking, if you know what I mean. And they still collect the water. And it's amazing to me. So when they dump it in, it purifies it to 99.87% pure. And the first time I brought this over, we tried this new technology that I found at a trade show. And we brought it over, and I'm doing this video, and if any of you are interested in seeing this video, you can. It's on our website, which is cmaid.org. I pour this water in, and it filters out, and I'm thinking, oh no, I'm making this promotional video, but I'm going to have to drink this water, and we've not tried this yet. And my wife's in the background going, don't do it! What are you thinking? And I realized I have to. And once I did, everyone cheered, they clapped, and because they understood this is something, if this person's willing to do, this is the real deal. And I'm telling you, it changes everything for these people. You give a water filter to one family, it affects 30 people. And it changes everything. Their intestinal issues are gone. The diseases they've had are gone. It changes, it is life-giving to these people. And they're $75, which is crazy. But the cool thing is they last up to 10 years if they take a water filter or a syringe and they back flush the filter and get all the junk out, which they're hesitant to do because they've walked a long way for this water. So to take a little bit of clean water and back flush it, that's a lot of water to them. And so this is what we do through the pastors. The pastors also show something. How many of you have ever heard of the Jesus film? The Jesus film was done in the late 70s. It is still one of the best evangelistic tools that we have access to our day, because we can take this video and we can show it in the tribal language. And for many of these people, this is the first time they'll have ever seen a video. And I was telling Bob, or at the last service I was at, I was telling them that we had showed up to a place to show this. And most churches are under acacia trees. And we showed up, and they are solar powered, so we can show them anywhere. We put up this screen. It's in their language. And there's these 4 tribesmen that were standing in the back. When I mean tribesmen, you probably have an idea of what a tribesman would look like with the spear and the skirt and everything. That's exactly it. I mean, that's exactly it. And they're intimidating. And they're sitting there in the back watching this, and one of them nudges me and through a translator asks me, where is this taking place? Now, in his mind, he thought this was actually happening right then. Never seen a movie, doesn't know a movie. And so I begin to tell him that it's the greatest story ever told and what this man did for them. And he says, well, where are these other men that are torturing this guy? That's a good man. I said, again, it's something that happened 2,000 years ago. We want to go kill those men. I could not get through to them because they did not understand that this was a real life thing. But we're able to show this to over 500 people in one setting. The problem is 800, 1,000 people will try to come and watch it. And it's just not big enough for us to do that. And so we end up showing it another night. And the amount of people that have decided to make a change and give their life to Christ through this movie is again, one of the greatest tools that we have. And this is what the pastors do. They are traveling around constantly showing this to people. And when I tell people in the bush, when you have giraffes running alongside of you, ostriches, you know you're in the bush. This is what I'm talking about. And, you can see these little kids, they're so excited because they've never seen a picture of themselves. They may have been able to see a reflection in water and everything else, but they're constantly coming to me and saying, hey, can I get a picture? You can see here, this is video in the Turkana region. This day, particular day, was 118, but I was there when it was 121 degrees. And they live, and you can see some of those acacia trees that are flat, but every once in a while there will be a really big one. Let me go back to that and show you, I don't know if I can replay that again or not. The hut on the right is the kitchen where they prepare food. The hut on the left, don't get mad at me, is where the mom and the children live, and then the man lives in that hut by himself. And they are handmade by the women, because if the men do it, it's terrible. I mean, you got to have a woman's touch on that. Now, that is in the Turkana region where it is desert, and they don't do multiple wives there. So the issue for us is every region we go to is completely different. Whole set of ideas, thoughts. And we were sitting under one of these trees as we went to a church service and got to see 80 people worshiping God under an acacia tree. And it was amazing. We got to see a deaf church because the deaf population in Kenya is the third highest in the world. It's because of the actual medications that they give. And again, well, why don't they stop? Well, it's what they've always done. And go to a deaf church and hear a deaf worship service, which is amazing because you close your eyes and you're going to be, I was really interested to see how they were going to do worship. And what they do is they get a big drum and they bang on it, and you can feel the vibration in your chest. And that's their cadence. That's how they know what to do and how to sing along. Because they do try to make noises, and many of them can. But they do signing as they're doing it. But I'm telling you, one of the best worship services I've ever been a part of is closing your eyes and feeling the rhythm and hearing the sound of what they're worshiping God with. Anyways, we went to one of these trees about 10 miles away on our way home. And I said, let's go stop and see that church. And what I come to find out is this was not a church. This was just a big acacia tree with 80 people, because it's the only spot that they could all sit under and escape the sun. They're very rare, but once you find one, communities hover around that particular tree. And so I had one of the people ask them, how many of them have ever heard the name of Jesus? Not one person raised their hand, but then about 30 seconds later, a lady raised her hand and said, maybe 20 to 30 years ago, I'm not 100% sure, but I think my aunt told me about a Jesus. And so what it does for me is it provides me to understand that there are places all around the world that still have not heard the name of Jesus. Which is hard for me, because when you're in the United States, there's especially in Grand Rapids, there's a church on every corner. And so when you hear, until everyone hears the name, you're like, come on, everybody. It is amazing to see, and I'm proud to say today there's a church under that tree. A pastor, she has started a church under that tree and has done extremely well. We have trained over 3,500 pastors in our lifetime at CMA, and now we are doing a mode of discipleship. Let me just share with you the Girls Rescue Center. These are the girls that run away from these tribes because they don't want to be married at 10 years old. They don't want to become a slave. They don't want to have the genital mutilation done. So they'll run away to one of the pastors, and the pastors will bring them to us. And we have this beautiful oasis out in the middle of nowhere where you're driving along and all of a sudden you see these trees, and it's the Girls Rescue Center, and each girl has their own cabin that they stay in with 5 other girls, with a house mom, with a counselor. We have 4 full-time counselors. We have a farm there where they are self-sustainable. All the food they pick, all the cows that we have, the cattle, this GRC is self-sustainable, and we're teaching them life skills that they would have never had before, again, out in the bush. And so they live there full-time. And we get them all the way through high school, and many of them will decide to go on through college. You can see the lady in the blue there. She is one of our counselors. That is her full-time job. Talking to them about a father, which is hard for them to hear, because their father wanted to sell them. That's what their father thought of them, their earthly father. But talking to them about a godly father that hears them, that sees them, that cares for them, something they've not experienced before. Some of these girls have already gone through the genital mutilation. Some of them have already been raped. Some of them have already been married off. And so it's a lifetime of working with them. But what I find interesting is every morning at 6:30, they get up and they walk an hour and 15 minutes to a school. And as they walk, they sing the same song. All my life you've been faithful. How many of you know that song? You're so, so good. And I really had a hard time the first time I heard them sing that. Really? All your life? He's been faithful? He's so, so good? I know your stories. I know what you've gone through. But it's a testament of what God has done in their lives to say, I'll be the father your earthly father never was. I'll be the father that hears you, that sees you, that cares for you. You can take your burdens, you can take your hurt, you can take your pain and put it on me, and I will love you. And so when I see these girls that are rescued, like Winnie here, she came out of the Maasai land, huts like I showed you. This was going to be her life. This is what she was going to be. But she had the courage to run away and say, I want more. And so, months back, she came and told her story. This is what my life would have looked like. But then I ran into a real father. And I went through a program through Christian Mission Aid at the Girls Rescue Center, and it changed my life. Do you know that she went through college? We got her all the way through college, and she works for Boeing out in Seattle today. She just showed her certificate she was so proud of, 5 years of recognition from the CEO, and I knew that they were mass-produced and everything else, but she was so proud. And she made an announcement at this function that she's moving back and becoming a part of the Kenyan aviation program. She wants to go back to her home. This isn't her home. And she's going to live at the Girls Rescue Center to be a counselor for the girls on the weekends. It's life-changing. It's life-changing to hear her story and what God has done in her life. One last thing I want to share with you is we do a lot with youth. We do soccer tournaments. This is where we work in Nairobi. We work in the slums, one big one called Kibera. It's 1.3 million people live in these houses that are no longer than 8 feet long by 6 feet wide with just some sheet metal that covers it. And they sleep on the ground. 6, 7, 8 people somehow sleep in there. There is no restrooms. There is nothing. Sewage flows through the streets. But there's nowhere for kids to have fun because the land is so compact. And so we get groups of kids that have never had an experience of, they try to play soccer with pieces of tape that they made into these little balls, and they kick in these little alleyways that are 4 feet wide. and we give them a week to be a kid. Take them out, put them on a team, get them soccer jerseys, get them medals. And we talk to them at halftime about what it means to be a follower of Christ. We talk to them about what it means to treat your sister in Christ. We do the same for girls, and they have a tournament. We do a deaf team, which is fascinating because in soccer, a lot of times people keep their head down looking at the ball, but they can't, because if they want to communicate, if they want to know, they got to be looking because they can't be hearing. And our last tournament, they won it all, which was fantastic. We do 8 teams, and I was so proud of this team. But for once, they just get to learn what it means to be a kid, to understand who God is, how to be a man of integrity, how to treat people. And they are just so excited to see this. And I want to invite you guys to come and see CMA and see the 28 different ministries that we do. And if you do come, you get to go on a safari. This was taken from last time I was there on my balcony. There's an elephant just sitting there, the sun going down. Mount Kilimanjaro's in the background. There's zebra. And then at night, there's these tribesmen that walk around with sticks and flashlights to keep the lions away. That's a little intense, but I tell you what, just a beautiful experience. But this morning, I want to give you an update on who CMA is, but I want to talk to you about the power of the church, the power that you have when you give to missions, the power of being faithful when things don't seem easy. So Pastor Bob read this. I'm going to read it again. John 6:1. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he had already in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than a half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. He asked this only to test him, for he had already in mind what he was going to do. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. So, as we're reading the story, we hear a couple different people. We hear of some Philip, who we don't necessarily hear a lot of in the Bible. But before I get into that, let me just quick tell you a story. About 10 years back, maybe, I had a missionary come to our church. I was a pastor in Mount Clemens there, and he wanted to experience what it was like to be in America. I believe he was from the Philippines. And so we went out, and I said, okay, we're going to go to eat, and then we're going to go to a Tigers game so you can see baseball. He loved baseball. And I said, where do you want to go to eat? You name it. You know, if it's too expensive, I'll let you know, but you pick anything you want. We have a lot of good restaurants over here. And he says, Popeye's chicken. I said, Popeye's chicken? Of all the places, that's where you want to go? I love chicken, and I've heard they got the best. Okay. So we're downtown, and we go into a Popeye's that had kind of thicker bulletproof glass and the wheel that would turn around. You put your money in, and then they give you your food. And so we're studying it and everything else. And the guy comes up to us and says, hello, welcome to Popeye's Chicken. Would you like to try our new Louisiana Delta chicken? And the guy says, yes. And he looks back and, oh, sorry, we're all out. And I thought, how silly is it to ask a question knowing that you don't have it? And I said, well, why'd you ask us? He goes, well, it's our spiel. I was told that you have to ask every single person, do you want to try the Louisiana? Yeah, but if you have the Louisiana Delta chicken, then that's one thing. But to not, this makes no sense. But I can tell you that Jesus will never ask you a question that he does not have the answer for. He will not say, what do you think? He already knows. He already knows the answer. And so what he's doing here when he tells them, when he asks Philip, what are we going to do? He does this because he already knows what he's going to do. And sometimes he tests us. And again, in verse 6, it says he asked this only to test him. Now, the interesting thing is Philip is from Tiberias, and that's where they're in. So if anybody is going to know where to get that kind of food for 4,999 lunches, it's going to be him. Philip's going to know. He's going to say, yeah, I know where to get that kind of food. And he says, not even with a half year's wages could we do this. Jesus was asking him because he already knew. He already knew. You know, there's one of my favorite stories is a lady that goes in. Her and her husband go in to pick out a dog at a pet store. And they walk in, and there's a parrot sitting at the door. And as soon as that lady walks through the door, the parrot stops, looks at the lady, and says, "Boy, you're ugly." What? The shop owner gets so upset, he goes over to that parrot and says, "Don't you ever say that again. If you do that again, I'm going to get rid of you." They pick out a dog they like, and the shop owner says, "Come back another day. We'll set up a time where you can handle the puppy, see what you think, and everything else." And the shop owner's interested to see what that parrot's going to do again. So the couple walks in. The parrot stops. The lady looks at the parrot. And the parrot says, "Boy, you're ugly." The shop owner gets so mad he rolls up a newspaper and says, "You say that again, I'm going to pluck every one of your feathers. And I'm going to roast you." Well, now's the day for the people to come pick up the puppy. So they come in, and everyone is just standing, waiting to see what that parrot's going to say. She walks in, stops. Parrot looks at her. She looks at it. And the parrot says, "You know." Right? God knows. God knows what he's doing. God knows when he asks you something. God asks you to take a step forward. He knows how he's going to provide. God's not going to ask you to do something that he doesn't already have an answer to. I can promise you that. And sometimes we think of this 4,999 gap that they had. They had the one lunch, but they needed 4,999 more. God knows what he's going to do. And sometimes we look at this and we have gaps in our lives where what you have and what you need seems like that 4,999 gap. And it seems impossible. And many times when I ask this question, we instantly go to money. Of what I have and what I need or want, there's a huge gap. Sometimes it's a battle of the mind between the fear you have and the peace you want. And that gap seems so big. Sometimes it's in marriages where one spouse will say, "This is the love I have for my spouse. This is the love I know I need to have, but that gap seems way too big." Listen, if you leave God out of that equation, that 4,900 gap is not going to turn out well. You have to keep God in the equations. I think of this for single parents. where they get up in the morning and they have kids that they need to get off to school, they need to go to work, they come home, they got to do this, they got to do that. And it seems like what I have and the energy I need is so big. And we need to turn to God on it. You know, there's a little boy that's praying and praying so loudly in his room, God, please help me to get this bicycle for my birthday, screaming it out loud. And the mom comes in and says, why are you being so loud? God can hear you. And he says, yeah, but Grandma's in the next room and she can't hear me. See, what he's trying to do is use his voice to be loud, to have other people. I'm not saying we shouldn't go to our brothers and sisters in Christ and ask for help. But what we need to do is turn to God the Father first. If we go to God the Father first, instead of raising our voices so that we can make it happen. Listen, if you do the natural, if you do what God has asked you, the natural, He will do the supernatural. And so we need to turn to God first. We do this, and there's a gap. There's a billion, not millionaire, down in Louisville, and he was dying of cancer, and I was told, and his wife asked if I would come down. And when I went out into the hospital room, I could see the gap on his face. That he knew what he needed, but who he is, how his body is broken, it's too big. And so I said, what we need is pray for peace. Pray so that God would just embrace you in this time, love you, hold you. That you feel His warm arms. You've done so much good for the world. You've lived on your faith. You've told everybody. So that when you pass on, you'll hear those, well done, good and faithful servant. I'd like to say that man, he was healed, but he wasn't. But I can tell you he died with peace. And that filled that gap for him. And I remember him saying, Chad, with all the money I have, none of it can take care of this. I've thrown millions and millions of dollars trying to get the best treatment, the best thing. But in the end, my money made no difference. And so many times in life, we look and say, if I just had this amount of money, if I just had that, things would be better. It wasn't better for that billionaire. No amount of money he had made the difference. But I can tell you in the end, he died in the presence of the Lord. He died knowing that God was in control, that He sat on the throne, and he was ready to go home. So what is it in your life that you see a gap? What is it where there's a 4,999? Is it the fear you have between what you know you want and peace? Is there a money issue where you just seem like, God, it's too big? Is it relationships? Is it a sickness? What is it that in your life there's a 4,999 gap? I can't say. You just fill in the gap there. And I can tell you, many of you right now are able to identify something. Because all, at one time in life or another, we'll all have that where we feel like there's a gap. But can I tell you what He said at the end? Verse 11, Jesus then took the loaves. And this is what got me. Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. He doesn't go right to the, I need the breads and the loaves. I need this to happen. I need to, Father, help me. No, He just gave thanks. I submit to you when we go through these times, to start by giving thanks. Father, you sit on the throne. Father, you're in charge. Father, I know you hear me. I know you see me. I know you care for me. Father, we give it to you. You're in charge. I give you thanks. I give you thanks that your timing is not my timing. That my thoughts are not your thoughts. That you already know how this is going to happen. It may not turn out the way I want it to, but you love me so much that you are willing to say, I'm in control. Just trust me. It may not look what I want it to be, but Father, I trust you. I give you thanks. You've always been there. Thank you, Father. Thank you. Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. I can be honest with you, so many times in my life, I have started off with the fish and loaves, and I have bypassed it. I remember one time we were feeding in this drought, and we had a line that looked to be at least a mile long. These people were hungry. I mean, we're already talking people that are 70, 80-pound adults. And the food that they would get would be life-changing. It would save these people because they had not eaten for so long. And I just kept on going, it's not enough. We don't have enough. It makes no sense. We don't have enough. And one of the pastors that had gone through our pastoral training came to me and said, you've taught us. Don't forget about the fish and loaves, how Jesus fed the 5,000. Let's trust him to do the same today because he's never let us down. And I was embarrassed because I'm like, we're the ones that had taught these pastors this, and yet my first inclination was to get loud and say it out loud and get upset and get frustrated because I see these people's poor faces. And he reminded me, let's give thanks. Let's thank God because he's never let us down before. And so we did. And can I tell you, every single person got fed that day. And enough to take home for a week. I don't know. I don't know how it happened. It doesn't make any sense. But someone had to tell me to stop, remember who he is, and give thanks. And so, brother, would you come up and we're going to sing this song. And as we do, first of all, I want to thank you. It's churches like you that have given to CMA, that have come to take a water filter. Some of people say, I can't do a whole water filter. It's $75, but I can do a half, and I'll find someone else. And I call churches, and they're like, yeah, we can do a match program where we do 10, and we'll match anything the church does. And they've been able to take care of needs. To be faithful in times when the church is in need, when pastor brings up missions, to say, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I trust God. And he did it to test me, and I know he's not going to test me if he doesn't have an answer. But no matter what it is in that gap in your life, present your request, thank him, and know he's in charge. He hears you, he sees you, he cares for you. And when we can have that, we have peace, and as well with your soul. So I'd like to invite you, as my brother starts playing, if there's anything where you would say, Pastor, I have a need. I don't need to know what it is. Pastor Bob doesn't need to know. But if you just feel like I want someone to agree with me in prayer, I'll be available to pray with you. But listen to this song. Listen to these words. May you walk out of here today with peace, strength, because you know He's in control. Keep your eyes turned to Christ.